Hello and welcome to this video about installing the eDirectory practice into Cimitra. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go and find the documentation on how to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm logged into Cimitra administration as an admin. And because of that, under the help menu, I have this admin option, okay? And that takes me out to Cimitra's website. We're going to be setting up actions. And so we're going to go here, and then here's the NetIQ eDirectory practice. It kind of talks about it. And this is where things really get good, is when we can click on here, and this takes us over to the README on GitHub, okay? So here's the documentation. I'm gonna try and shrink this down a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna throw this over there. Okay, anyways, so first off, what you wanna do is fulfill the prerequisites. So you need to have a Linux host that's got like a eDirectory partition on it. And it's probably going to be a SUSE box, and you need to deploy a Cimitra agent to that box. Okay, we're not going to go through that. That's not really what we're supposed to do in this video, but make sure you fulfill that prerequisite. And so then really what you're doing is you're copying and pasting this command into a terminal prompt. Now you want to make sure that you've sudoed in, you're logged in as root, something like that. And then you want to basically issue this command. So I'm going to copy and paste that to the clipboard. And in actuality, I've done so over on the box that's in the data center that houses my SUSE server that's got eDirectory. So I just press enter, and that's it. That's all it does. And then I'm supposed to type in this command, Cimitra edir sh, and that creates what's called a settings file, okay? And that settings file, excuse me, you need to configure. I'm not going to go through exactly what you're supposed to do, but basically, if we come back to the documentation, you're supposed to modify the credentials. So here's your credentials for an admin level user, for example. And so once you've done that, you should run this command and not do anything until you've run that command. So we'll run that command in a moment. But let me just tell you too, if you want to use a different admin account than maybe your common admin account, we've got a section here that talks about how to do that, okay? But I'm not going to do that. That's again for you to do if in case you want to do that. I'm going to get a glass of water here, and I'm going to go ahead and run this command over on the Linux box that's got, there we go. So see that Cimitra edir sh action list users, all users in tree, okay? So what we're doing is we're running the script, the eDirectory practice for Cimitra is really just one bash shell script, and we're telling it to list all of the users in the tree. And it's going to read this settings config file, right? The settings edir config file, and get the information that it needs in order to authenticate with the tree and fulfill our request. So I press enter, and bada bing, now I know successfully that this ran and it was able to get all these users and so forth out of the tree. If you don't get that far, then there's no reason to go any further in this process. So make sure you get that far. Okay. So great. Now we've done the install, okay, and configuration of our Cimitra eDirectory practice script. And now what we're supposed to do is download, read, and follow this document. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. Comes down as a docx file, okay, but WordPad can read it just fine. And I'm just going to zoom in on this, okay. So basically it's telling us to first make a folder structure and then a subfolder structure under that. So we're going to come back over to Cimitra, and this is really where we're going to hang out. So I'm going to close down all of those panels. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say create folder, and magic of copy and paste. There we go. So now I'm going to switch right back over here, NetIQ eDirectory, and I'm going to create a folder by that name. And here we go. And these are just places to contain the Cimitra actions that we may want to share and may not want to share. like this admin only folder, we're not going to share with other people most generally. Okay, and we're going to come here, create a folder called user onboarding. So create a folder, user onboarding, and finally this passwords and access folder. All right, and so we do that, create folder, passwords and access. Fantastic. I hit the wrong button. Create folder. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so these are 3 different folders, and we're now going to import into these folders Cimitra actions, and we're going to be importing them from off of URLs actually. And so let's come back to the documentation and see what it tells us to do. It says to go into the admin only actions folder and to create a Cimitra action by importing this URL. Watch this, okay? I'm going to say create import, all right? I'm going to say URL, okay? And then the only thing that I have to do is I have to choose the agent that's deployed out on that Linux box. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this again so you can see it. So there it is. VLX GW4T is the agent that's deployed on that SUSE Linux box that I showed you a moment over here, okay? A moment ago over here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say import. There we go. And really, I'm just going to hit create. All right. And so this can potentially upgrade this Cimitra eDirectory practice to the latest version of the code. And so, but we don't need to run this at this moment. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Let's come back over to the document that we have, the WordPad document. And it says, okay, now import this Cimitra action from the URL. And so I'm going to copy and paste that. I'm going to say create, import, dump in the URL, all right, and click on import, all right, and I'm going to click on create. Now I'm going to click on it, and guess what? It tells us exactly what we're supposed to do with this action. So let me just kind of give you a sense of what we're doing. This is a action that tells the Cimitra eDirectory practice script to go out, log into the eDirectory tree, and get a listing of all of the contexts that have users in them, okay? And so it runs that, and it gives us this output into a JSON file format. And we're going to use that kind of like a little Lego piece to click into another action. So anyway, so what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to click on the run button, and then there's going to be this field, this result window that comes up. We need to copy and paste the results and then save it to a file called contexts param JSON. Okay, so let's just go ahead and run this, and in a moment we're going to get this output, and we're going to then just save it into like Notepad++. Here we go. Okay, so you see this? This is the JSON data. This is this little piece that we need to kind of construct some other things. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into Notepad++, and then we're going to go ahead and save this out as context param JSON. Okay, so I'm going to do a save, and I'm going to save it to the temp directory, and bada bing. Okay, we just saved that file. All right, now let's come back to our instructions in WordPad. It says, okay, great, you saved it as context param JSON. Now import this action, okay? And so we're going to go ahead and do a create and an import and URL. Okay, where it's really pulling these from is just GitHub. It's just pulling some JSON files from GitHub, okay? And these JSON files are basically pre-constructed Cimitra actions like we've got right here, okay? So look at this. Okay, so it says, okay, now take this one, and it doesn't say to run it. It says edit this Cimitra action to define the eDirectory context for users to be administered with Cimitra. Import the context param JSON file that we just created from the previous action, okay? and import it into the division area. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click on edit, okay, and then see where it says division, and it says, hey, get that context param JSON file. Remember the one we just created? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and import that in, and we're going to say local file, choose file, okay, and there's my context param JSON file. Remember, that's the one that I saved out. Whoopsie, wrong window. That's the one I saved out with Notepad++, okay? So I'm going to click on import, and magic, look at that. It shows all the contexts, right? Because that was the output from that other action in that JSON file. So it shows all the contexts. Now, first off, I have to do an update, and then I actually have to go and edit again. It's just a little ism. You've got to do that. Okay, so now it's basically saying, hey, what contexts do you want to administer inside of Cimitra? So you got all these contexts. Do you really want to be administering them? No, I really don't. I want to just, my primary contexts are these three right up above: administration, faculty, and students. And in fact, I want to actually put administration at the top. Okay, and I can see how that's done. And then I'm going to put students down at the bottom, and I'm going to click on administration. There we go. And this is now how I want everything to look that chooses a context. Almost every Cimitra action, you have to choose a context, okay? And so when you choose the context, let me just show this to you here for a second. So you go into the action, and it'll say, choose a context, right? And we want it to be in this format. We don't want all the other contexts in my tree, just these three, okay? And so I've now perfectly made this. And now what I need to do is I need to take an additional action. I need to export this file, okay? So interesting. So here's the file, okay? So Cimitra param division JSON, okay, is where that that file got exported to. So that's exactly what I was asked to do. It said to go ahead and kind of refine your division parameter and then export it. So that's what I just did. And so this division JSON file is going to be used in almost every other Cimitra action is going to use this division file, okay, or this JSON file. Now we've got to do really the very same thing for groups, okay? So we're going to go here. Let's go back to the documentation, okay? And it said, okay, great. You got your Cimitra param division JSON file. Now we need to work on groups, okay? So let's come back over here, and we need to get into the browser. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to say create, import. And so this entire process is just for generating some files. Just, there's no functional purpose behind these actions outside of the things I'm doing right now. And then they can just be deleted. But it's to basically to generate this building block piece that we're going to take and import into every one of the Cimitra actions that we import in. So okay, so we're going to go here, URL, all right, and dump that in, all right, and boop, all right, and create. Now we're already, this is old hat for us, but now we're making a groups param JSON file, and so we're going to click on run, and when we run this, it's going to create a JSON list of all of the groups in my eDirectory tree that have users in them, okay? And so that's what this function does. And so, okay, look at all these groups. All right, so I'm going to take and I'm going to save that off, right? So I'm going to go into Notepad++. I'm going to say, let's make a new file, and we're going to say save as. And first off, let's get the name that we're supposed to be using. We're supposed to be using groups param JSON. It doesn't really matter what it's called, but it's helpful just to kind of be able to go along with the documentation in this fashion, okay? And so I'm going to go here and I'm going to save it as groups param JSON. Okay, great. So I got all done with that. I literally could just delete that, but I don't want to take a moment to do that. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the next process. So we're going to take and we're going to import this. So you see I'm just working down this list, okay? So I'm gonna do create, import, and URL. There we go, there's the URL, import, and bada bing, and I'm gonna click on create. And when I go to run it, it gives me the same thing. Hey, go ahead and import that groups param JSON file and then export after you've cleaned it up. Because you're going to see there's all these lists, these groups that come in, and some of them I don't want, okay? And so let's go ahead and let's edit this. And we're going to, see it says import the groups param JSON file. So I go, okay, I know where that is. That's in my temp directory. And so there it is, okay? And I'm gonna say import, all right? And now, look at that. It's this magical list, right? Of all of the groups in my system. I first have to click on update, and then I gotta edit again. Okay, and now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna delete the groups that I don't want to be administering vis-a-vis this particular action. So, okay, group one, group two, that one. Okay, the rest of the groups I do want to keep. So this is now this little brick of groups, and we're going to take and import this into other actions shortly. But let's go ahead now. What we're going to do is we're going to do an export action here. And so let's do that. Okay, there we go. And now we're fulfilling the requirement that it asked us to do, was to create this Cimitra param groups JSON file. So we're just going to show you that here. So Cimitra param groups JSON. Okay, great. So that's all done. Now to the, so all of that was just so we could generate these little JSON files that we're going to be using all throughout the rest of this import process. All right. Okay. So now these are the real actions that we want to import. So I'm going to come back over here. Don't want to get ahead of myself. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the admin only actions folder, and we're going to import this action called move user. So, so let's go create, import, URL, and there we go. And let's go in, and great. So move user. Okay, so see here where it says division context. See, it says, hey, import this Cimitra param division JSON file. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to just click on the import button here. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to say local file, choose file. Okay, and it's in my downloads. Okay, so see that? So I'm going to do division, right? And I'm going to say open, okay, and import. Guess what it did? It overwrote this with the stuff inside of that JSON file. Do you kind of recognize that? Those are the three contexts that I want to be administering. All right. Now, there's another place where it's asking for a division. So we need to import that in there also. So let's click on that, choose file, and division, and import, and create. All right. Now this is an actual Cimitra action that you would use. So let's say you wanted to move a user from the administration context, and you wanted to move them to, you know, faculty or something like that. You would do that. You put in the user ID, and then you click on run. Okay, so that's an admin level action. And so let's go ahead and let's do the next one. Okay, you're gonna see how this works. This is really cool. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna say modify exclude group membership. So that's what we're gonna be importing, is this action off of GitHub. And it's really cool. We just say import, and we say URL, and we dump the URL in right there, and import. And there it is, modify exclude group membership. All right. Now we do need to go in here and do two things according to the documentation. Let me just take you back here. It says in the division parameter, import the file Cimitra param division JSON. But it also says make sure to modify the action field switches. They are currently configured with an example group, CN Cimitra exclude OU groups equals OU Cimitra. Anyways, read more about the exclude group and modify that field, the actions field, to reflect the actual exclude group that you're going to use. Okay, so but let's go ahead and let's first import this in. And so I'm going to say local file, choose file. All right, and this is the division. Okay, and then here's the other piece that you need to modify. I don't have to here because this is actually my system that it's based off of, but you're going to have to change these locations that are all referenced here. You're going to have to change that. In fact, let me just take this out of here so you can see it because it's kind of cut off. So I'm going to go into like Notepad. Okay. Oh, I'm going to go into Notepad. Here we go. And there we go. All right. So you see that? That's what's in that field. So this right here has to be changed to has to be changed right there. You have to indicate the name of the group and the context for that group. All right. And that allows you to define what's called an exclude group. Read the documentation about an exclude group. It's kind of advanced, but it's super cool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create, and then I'm going to go ahead and import. Sorry, I had someone just about come in. I'm going to go ahead and import the next action. So here we go. Let's go to the browser. Okay, and I'm going to say create and import. Let's extend our session here. There we go. And we're going to do a URL and dump that in. All right. And import. All right. Modify user, ignores exclude group. Now, almost all of these, we're going to have to specify the context, so, or the division. So you see that there's the context in eDirectory. So let's import that division file and say local file. And we're going to say param, division. There we go. All right. And that's really because there's no mention to groups and so forth in this one, right? And so we can go ahead and just create that, okay? And so here we go. Here's the modify user. And so what this does is it bypasses the exclude group, okay? Because you're an admin level person. And again, read more about the exclude group, but this is really cool. You can modify a user and ignore the exclude group, and that way you're like the ultra admin, okay? All right, now let's come back over here and let's do our next one. And so you're gonna kind of see a pattern here. We can really go quickly here in a couple, no, let's not do that. In a couple minutes, we're just gonna be zooming through this, okay? But so I'm gonna say create, import, URL, put in the URL, import, and then we're going to go here, see where it says division. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to a local file, choose file, and there's the division. All right, and import, and we're going to say create. All right, and so just kind of show this to you here, right? So you notice that we have like the contexts, right? We have the default context of administration because we set that up originally. So anyways, every single one of these kind of looks like that you have like these contexts, right? So you can see why we have to import that in is because we have to reflect the context for certain users, okay? Now in a moment, we're going to be getting into groups also. So let's go here, and there's a remove user function. Okay, so let's look at that. And so we go here, and we're going to go there. We're going to say create, import, and it's going to be a URL. These URLs are just out on GitHub effectively. And there we go. And so these are just JSON files that we're importing in that have everything kind of pre-wired, okay? But this is the only thing we can't pre-wire is your divisions and your groups, okay? So I'm gonna say local file, choose file, all right? And so we're gonna choose the division and import, you see? So we just took that little brick and just kind of replaced this little component, right? And that's it, that's all we have to do, all right? And so there's a remove user function, all right? And just you can kind of see how this works. It's kind of cool. It shows that there's some graphic you've got in here. You can obviously take this stuff out. You can edit this, but and then you just say, okay, this is the context they're in, and I'm just going to type in Tay, and I'm going to type in yes, okay? So that's kind of a cool thing, you know. This way you can really be sure that the person wants to do this. And so I even put in a confirmation dialogue in there, okay? And so you're assured that someone can't do this by mistake. Now, I don't have a user Tay, and so that just kind of got kicked back from eDirectory, but I wanted to show you how that worked. And so, and you know, if you don't like them to be prompted, or you want some kind of a message to be different, you know, you could just go here and you can just delete this confirm word feature. You don't have to do it, okay? So, okay, let's come back here and let's go back to our little WordPad file, all right? Okay, now we're going to get into the user onboarding features, okay? So let's go to create user, all right? So we're going to come here, and then we're going to go into the folder in the user onboarding. We're going to say import, we're going to say URL, and we're going to dump that in, and magic, it's going to come in here. Now there's two fields I have to modify here, okay? See the parameter division, so I got to, okay, import that little Lego piece there again. Local file, choose, and there's the parameter division, division parameter, there we go. And then the other thing I have to do is slide down here, because there's a mention to groups. And so I need to change, there we go. Okay, so see that? Get the Cimitra param groups JSON file. So we're going to do that, choose the file, and we're going to do that and import and create. Okay, so great, magic. So now when someone goes to use this, it's got, you know, the various contexts, okay? This is the first time I've shown you how the groups work. See that? You see all those groups that are listed there? Those are the groups that we said, those are the groups we want, and we exported that to a JSON file. Now, whenever there's the need to import the groups, we import that groups JSON file that we made originally. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. We're going to go here, and we're going to go to modify user, all right? So now we're going to just really get going with a good clip, okay? So let me come back over here, and we're going to do create and import and URL and put that in, and there we go. So there's the modify user. What do we got to do? We got to go and specify the context. And so I say local file, and I do that, and there we go, and import and create, all right? And so isn't that nifty? And so I can do things as simple as list all the users in the administration context, okay? So, and it's that simple. I've wired up a Cimitra action, and I can do things like list users, modify users, and so forth. Okay, so let's come back over here to our little WordPad. So you see it takes about 2 minutes tops per action, right? And so I'm going to come here. This is modify group membership. So this is going to have two fields that we need to import into. Sorry, wrong action. I can't. Okay, let's go there. All right, there we go. And so let's say import. Okay. And so we're going to go down here and see where it says division. Okay. We're going to go ahead and import that in. And so let's say local file. And there we go. Import. Bada bing. All right. And then we also have groups that I think we've got to, yeah, here we go. So it said to import that in. So I'm going to import in local file. Okay, choose file. And there's the groups. Okay. And import. There we go. So modify group membership. All right. Let's go to the next action. And username change. All right. So let's do that. And let's come back over here, and we're going to say create, import, URL, put in the URL, and import. All right, and then we've got to go and specify the context, the division. So we're going to do that, and local file, choose file, and we're going to do division and import. All right, and create. There we go. There's username change. So this is kind of a nifty little action. You can say, hey, got this user, here's their name, and then you can say, here's going to be their new first or last name or whatever it be. Okay, so we've done that. Let's come back over here to our little WordPad file, and we're going to grab that. This is the bulk modify group membership feature. Boy, it's a really neat one. A little complicated, but not too bad. And so you're going to want to see if that's something you want to give people or not. And anyways, you're going to do that and import. There we go. And so what we need to do on this one is import the context, right? The divisions and local file, choose file, and there we go, and import and create. All right. And so this is kind of how this thing works. Oh, look at that. I also have to import the group. So let's come back over here. And so let's edit that. Okay, there we go. This is where, see that? Cimitra param groups JSON. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and import that. And I'm going to do groups JSON import update. All right, and so I run that. You see administration, and there's all my groups and so forth. So cool beans. All right. So now it says that we should create a folder under user onboarding called common user changes. So let's go ahead and just do that. Let's come back over here and let's create a folder, and we're going to call it common user changes. Okay, we're going to go into that folder and come back to the documentation. It says, okay, go ahead and import that one. Okay, so I'm going to say create import URL, dump that in, and this is the ability to change people's phone numbers. Okay, now as usual, I've got to go in and I've got to specify the division file, right? The contexts. Okay, so here we go, and import. Okay, create. All right, so got that done. Now it says that there's another file that we're going to pull in here. So let's go ahead and grab that one for assigning the user's manager. All right, so come back over here to the browser, and we're going to say create and import and URL and dump that in and import. And we're going to go down to the division here, right? See that? And see it says to pull in that file. So great. We're going to go ahead and kind of gets truncated there. But anyways, so local file, choose file, and boop, import. All right, great. Now we're going to come back over here, and we've got two more actions to import. All right, it says go into the passwords and access folder and import this action. So we're going to come back over here, and we're going to say create import, and we're going to say URL, dump that in, and import. And we're going to slide down here once again. You're probably a pro at this now. And so then we're going to do division, import, create. All right, so there's all kinds of things you can do in this one. You can list all the users, unlock an account, and so forth. Anyways, it's a pretty cool one. Now let's go to the last one. I'm going to go into WordPad, and we're going to copy and paste this little URL now to the clipboard. There we go. And we're going to flip right back over to the browser. I'm going to say create and import. All right, URL, dump the URL in there and import, and go down to the division, sure enough, and we're going to say a local file, choose the file, and there's the division. All right, fantastic. Okay, so we've now put this entire Cimitra eDirectory practice in place. So probably some logical things you'll want to do is, one, kind of get acquainted with each of these and see if there's things that you don't like about them or that you would label differently, or whatever it be. Just I'll give you for instance here. See this secure code? Well, you don't know what the secure code is, so guess what it is? It's do, D-O-I-T, but it's a big D and a big I-T. And the way I know that is let's just go and let's edit this. All right, and you're going to see right here. Okay, see where it says secure code, and then that's the validating regex. Now you might just go, that's annoying. I don't want to do that. Okay, fine. Just there you go. Just delete that, and you haven't harmed anything, right? And then when you go in here, they type in that, and, choose the context, type in the user ID or the name, and then the new password. And obviously the password should comply with your eDirectory policy so that it flies through and it doesn't give you an error. But anyways, that's something that you want to be aware of. Now, next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go and figure out who you're going to share this with, right? And so I know, for example, that I want to share it with Anna. Okay, and then I can go to this and I want to share this one with Anna also. Okay, so let's just do that, and then bada bing, I've now shared it. Anna logs in, and she's going to have those folders shared with her. Okay, so let's come back to the documentation, and let's just make sure that I've covered all of the things that I need to. I really think I have, but let me just go here. I'm just going to use a little eater, just kind of a little shortcut, and I'm going to go here, and let's see if we've done everything that we need to. All right, so we installed it, configured the script, right? We already did that. The settings, we did create an admin account, that's optional, and we read the documentation, and now this gets into what's called an exclude group. I highly recommend you have an exclude group. Here's the idea. What if you've got users in various contexts that you're allowing people to administer, and they can change passwords, for example? And let's say you're in one of those contexts. Do you really want them to be able to fiddle with your account? Probably not. And so if you use the exclude group, then that will remedy that. So there we go. That's all that we need to show you about installing the Cimitra eDirectory practice. Enjoy.